Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Monday, December the 16th. We're going to run through this slate position by position. I'll tell you guys some of the players that stand out to me the most. Just looking at this slate the night before, I'm recording this video on Sunday night. These are kind of my first looks at this slate, just some of my early thoughts, some of the guys I'm interested in, just taking a look at this slate the night before. If you guys do want to get access to all of my updated content, I do provide a lot of updated and in-depth content over on Patreon. I write a full written article on the slate that I usually start writing Monday morning. I'll start writing it the morning of the slate, and then I'll usually finish it in the afternoon. I usually post my article around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you guys want to get access to my article, I make a roster construction video that I post in the afternoon as well. I give updated core plays over on Patreon. I have a ton of NBA content that I post over there Monday through Friday. You can check all that out, link down below. If you join the Patreon by Christmas Day, if you subscribe to the Patreon by Christmas Day, you will get access to our $100 free roll contest that I am running for all Patreon subscribers. It's $100 that I'm pulling out of my pocket and giving back to you guys. I want to support those that are supporting my content. So make sure you join the Patreon, get in there by Christmas Day, and you'll get access to that free roll. It's probably going to be a winner take all. I haven't decided yet, but most likely it's just going to be $100 to first place. It'll be for the Christmas Day NBA slate. I'll be running more free rolls over on Patreon as well. This isn't just a one-time thing. I'm probably going to run a new free roll every time I hit 25 more Patreons. So I believe right now we have like 58 subscribers on Patreon. Once we get to 75, I will run another $100 free roll contest for all Patreon subscribers. All you guys will have access to join. So get over there, check out all the content I have available. I do put up content for NFL as well. So if you play NFL along with NBA, I do have packages where you can get both sports at a cheaper price. And obviously, if you join the Patreon, you'll have a chance to win $100 in our free roll contest for the Christmas Day NBA slate. But check out the Patreon, like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel. If you are new, click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. And if you haven't yet, you can also follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah. But let's go ahead and run through point guard today. We'll start off here. So just looking at the top of this position, we got James Harden for $12,900 on DraftKings. Big injury at this position is Luca Dhansak. He's going to be out for about 2 weeks, which is definitely going to be something new. We haven't had a single slate this season where Luca Dhansak has been out. This is the first game that he's actually going to miss this season. I mean, technically he missed our last game. Like, he only played 2 minutes before he got hurt, but he still played in that game. So we're probably going to see a different starting lineup for the Mavericks. Going to see a lot of guys soak up usage, which we'll talk about throughout the video. But starting off with Harden, 12.9 on DraftKings. Like, he's been really expensive the last few slates, and I mean, he's paid off this price. I believe it was Saturday against Detroit. I didn't play NBA on Saturday. I usually don't play on the weekends. I'll play sometimes on Saturdays, but definitely don't play on Sundays. I know Westbrook rested for that game. Harden had played 38 minutes in that game, had 59 DraftKings points. He took 33 field goal attempts. I knew he was going to be like really popular on that slate, especially with Westbrook resting. He was 12.9 on that slate. He's still 12.9 today. I mean, there's probably going to be some value today because we do have a lot of injuries that we're waiting on. So you could probably get to Harden if you want to. At 12.9 on DraftKings, though, I'll probably look elsewhere. I mean, you have Giannis for almost $2,000 cheaper. Like, just give me Giannis today, especially with Eric Bledsoe out. Giannis does see a slight bump with Bledsoe off the floor. But on Yahoo, I think that's where it's a lot different. Like, Harden's price is just kind of stuck there. I mean, he's 59 on Yahoo. Giannis is 56. I do prefer Harden on Yahoo, especially because the shooting guard position isn't, like, nearly as deep as power forward. Like, there's a lot of power forwards I like today. There could be some value here if Blake Griffin's out. Love Porzingis at $30 on Yahoo, so I think it's pretty easy to jam in Harden. We got a lot of value on Yahoo just looking at this slate the night before. Definitely like plugging him into the early core, at least as of now, at $59. I think it's going to be pretty easy to build around him over there. On DraftKings, though, at 12.9, I'll be looking elsewhere on today's slate. We got Westbrook at 9,600, who I'm not really the biggest fan of today. I mean, Westbrook's always a fine play, but never a guy that I try and like jam in or get a ton of exposure to, especially when he's 9,600. I mean, for him to be like a tournament play, like a guy you need to have to win, like he has to get at least 60 DraftKings points, I would say. And I mean, Westbrook, his ceiling, I think, is a bit capped playing alongside James Harden. A good game from Westbrook is probably like 55 DK points. And if he puts up 55 at 9,600, like I can make that up from other positions. I can make that up elsewhere. Definitely need to keep an eye on the status of Devin Booker. That's some news we're going to need to watch heading into Monday. He is questionable heading into this game. If he were to sit, we will talk about Ricky Rubio, who will see a bump. Booker didn't play on Saturdays. I didn't play on Saturday, so didn't really keep up with things. But Booker sat out Saturday, could potentially miss again today. Definitely we need to keep an eye on that. Something that entices me is Damian Lillard's price tag. Damian Lillard all the way down to 8,400 on DraftKings. I do have quite a bit of interest in him today, now that his price is all the way down to 8,400. I mean, he's been pretty disappointing just as of late, the last 3 games against OKC, the Knicks, and the Nuggets. 41, 45, 35 DraftKings points. I mean, on the road at Denver is a tough spot. He only played 29 minutes against the Knicks because of blowout. OKC still had 41 DK points. I mean, Lillard's still a guy that's going to play 36, close to 38 minutes a night. I mean, he's playing huge minutes this season. This game against Phoenix should stay close. Phoenix been much more competitive this season. I really like Lillard today. His price is way down on both sides. I mean, on Yahoo, he's all the way down to $39. Definitely one of my favorite spin ups at the point guard position. Not sure if I'm not going to include him in the core as of now, but I might be able to get some more exposure to him depending on what kind of value we get. We are going to talk about some other point guards that I do like today. Obviously, Rubio, if Booker's out, would be a really strong play. Rubio had 53 DK points in 37 minutes on Saturday against the Spurs. Really big game from him. I do expect him to see a nice bump when Booker's off the floor. I mean, he's priced up to 7,900 on DraftKings, so he's not like a must-play by any means. But if Booker's out, obviously he'll see a bump. Kyle Lowry, I still have some interest in with Fred VanVleet doubtful for today. Lowry does see a bump with VanVleet off the floor. I know he hasn't been great just the last few games, but this is a really good spot here at home against Cleveland. This game can stay close. Like, we should expect pretty big numbers from Kyle Lowry. 7,700. You could definitely look to him as well. Not much I like else, though, like between like Lowry and Chris Paul, like Levine, Morant, Chris Paul, CJ McCollum. Like, these aren't guys I feel like I'm going to have like a ton of exposure to today. Dejounte Murray, though, I do have a lot of interest in. So he's 6,100 on DK. Played 31 minutes, or I believe, 31 minutes on Sunday or Saturday in that game against Phoenix. That game on, I believe it was Thursday night against Cleveland, that was one of the more tilting slates. I mean, I rostered a ton of Dejounte Murray on that night. He was still productive with 26 DK points, but he only played 17 minutes. Pop came out and said that game after Sacramento that Murray's minutes limit was pretty much lifted, and he wasn't going to be limited anymore this season. Well, he played 17 minutes that game, and then on Saturday when I didn't even play, of course, Dejounte Murray goes out there and plays 31 minutes and has 39 DK points. He did move into the starting lineup in that game, which is definitely notable. I think now that he is most likely going to continue to start, that secures his minutes in my opinion. It's likely he plays probably 25 to 30 minutes a night now that he's in the starting lineup. I assume he's going to play probably 25 to 30 minutes here. If I had to project him for minutes, I'd say like 27 to 28. Murray's been a very productive player this season. I can actually pull up his rates just so far this season with the Spurs. I know he got off to like the really hot start at the beginning of the year. He slowed down since then, but still, this is a very productive player. Just this season, with the Spurs in 496 minutes played, he has a 22% usage rate, averaging 1.2 fantasy points per minute, 26.5% assist percentage, 14.2% total rebound percentage, which is very high. He has a higher total rebound percentage than LaMarcus Aldridge, than Rudy Gay. That's pretty good for a point guard. So, really like Murray. Pace-up spot as well against Houston. Houston does rank 4th in pace this season. San Antonio, one of the slower paced teams. I mean, they're middle of the pack. They rank 14th. Nice little pace-up spot for them. They're going to need Dejounte Murray out there. I mean, he's one of their better defenders. You're going to need his defense on Harden and Westbrook. $21 on Yahoo. I like him a lot over there as well, especially on Yahoo where I'm probably going to have a decent amount of exposure to James Harden. I definitely like that correlation of playing Murray and Harden together. So really like Dejounte Murray today. He should continue to start, and hopefully they'll give him 30 minutes again. At least I hope so. But then under 6K, looking for plays here. So Jalen Brunson, someone I want to talk about. With the injury to Luca Dhansak, we saw Jalen Brunson play 34 minutes in that game against Miami. Had a very productive game with 38 DraftKings points, 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 8 assists. When Luca got hurt 2 minutes into the game, Brunson was actually not the guy that replaced him. It was DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright was the first guy off the bench to replace Luca. But DeLon Wright really struggled in that game. He only played like 7 minutes, and then he subbed out, and then he never checked back into the game. And we saw Jalen Brunson just like really take over in that game. He started the second half for Luca. I expect Brunson probably starts today, and even with the price up to 5,500, he has really good rates this season, or really good numbers this season, I should say, when you take Luca off the floor. Obviously, when you're taking a very high usage player like Luca Dhansak off the floor, there's going to be a lot of beneficiaries, so we will touch on all those. But just this season, in 292 minutes with Luca off the floor, Jalen Brunson has a 23.9% usage rate, averaging 1.04 fantasy points per minute, so just over a fantasy point per minute, 30.5% assist percentage. Pretty solid numbers for a guy at 5,500. If we just assume he plays 34 to 36 minutes here, which I imagine is what he will play, I mean, he projects very nicely at 5,500. Really like him on DK. On Yahoo, I think he's like one of the clear values. He's one of I think he's honestly a must play on Yahoo at $11. Like, I enjoy playing on Yahoo, but their pricing is really bad. Like, they just don't adjust guys to what they should be. Like, all the Mavericks are too cheap on Yahoo today. None of them got priced up, so I have a feeling I'm going to be playing probably 2 to 3 Mavericks in every lineup on Yahoo just because everyone's so cheap. On DraftKings, though, I think there's a little bit of, like, questions. Like, you do have to ask yourself, is this guy worth this salary? Brunson, though, at 5,500, assuming he starts and gets the minutes that he got last game, I think he's worth that salary, or just given his projection, given that he's been over a fantasy point per minute player with Luca off the floor this season. But now other point guards in the 5K range. If Isaiah Thomas is out today, you got a little revenge game for Ish Smith going back to Detroit to face the Pistons. I mean, he's still playing 28 to 30 minutes a night with IT out. 5,300. I like the matchup against Detroit. You could definitely look to him. I do prefer Brunson, but I would have Smith in my tournament player pool for sure. Under 5K, though, for value point guards, definitely want to touch on Dante D Vincenzo. So he started last game with Eric Bledsoe out against Cleveland. He played 25 minutes and had 33 DraftKings points, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. He shot 75% from the field and 50% from 3. Obviously, you don't expect him to shoot that well, but given that he started for Bledsoe, it was a blowout. He only played 25 minutes. I imagine if the game is close, you probably get more minutes from DiVincenzo. He is in play for me as a value today, 4,600 on DK. I really like him on Yahoo. I think that's where I have a lot of interest in him. He's at small forward over there, and he's only $11, just $1 off minimum salary. I think he's one of the better small forward value plays on Yahoo and just one of the better value plays overall. Definitely stands out over there, especially because with small forward eligibility, like, you don't have to roster him at guard where there's a lot of strong plays. You can roster him at small forward, which is usually always a much weaker position. And just looking at this small forward position, glancing through it, looks like a pretty weak position today, given that we have some value with DiVincenzo. Troy Brown, Tim Hardaway, probably going to be going cheap there to begin with. You do also have George Hill, who I expected to get a nice bump with Eric Bledsoe off the floor and Eric Bledsoe out last game, but he only played 22 minutes against Cleveland, just 20 DraftKings points. I expect better numbers from George Hill most nights. It was surprising that he didn't start for Bledsoe. He's still cheap, though, on DK at 4,300. You could definitely look to him as a value. I will be keeping my eye on that Mavericks starting lineup because I don't think it's 100% like in stone that Jalen Brunson starts. We could honestly see DeLon Wright start, and if he does, I mean, he's 3,700 on DraftKings. Like, he would be one of the better value plays if he does wind up starting. It's probably going to be Brunson, but I don't think that's set in stone by any means. So hopefully we get that Mavericks starting lineup before lock. If it is DeLon Wright, definitely have interest in him at 3,700. But now moving over to shooting guard, not really a position where I like the top. I mean, Bradley Beal at 9,400 I think is firmly in play against Detroit. I mean, this is just a guy that's going to get a ton of shot volume. I mean, he shot 30% from the field their last 2 games, and in their game against Memphis, he still had 56 DraftKings points, shooting 34% from the field. Like, he can rebound, he can obviously get assists. With Isaiah Thomas out, he does see a bump in usage. I do have interest in Beal. I just don't think he's going to be like a top priority for me today. Really don't think paying up at shooting guard is going to be a top priority for me either. I mean, Jimmy Butler in a fast-paced game against Memphis is interesting at 9,100, but he's not like a lock-and-load core play for me, at least, just given some of the other options that we have on the slate. We'll talk about some of the other guys in this price range that I do like at other positions. We obviously need to keep an eye on the Devin Booker injury. That's pretty big. Chris Middleton, I do have interest in. He does see a bump in usage, a nice bump in usage with Eric Bledsoe off the floor this season. I can pull that up for the Bucks real quick. I know he sees a big bump. I think Giannis obviously sees a bump as well. DiVincenzo, I believe, gets a pretty nice bump. So Chris Middleton plus 4.9% bump in usage with Eric Bledsoe off the floor. DiVincenzo plus 3.4%. Giannis plus 2.6%. Giannis's usage rate's up to 40% or over 40% when Eric Bledsoe's off the floor this season. DiVincenzo's been a fantasy point per minute player this season with Bledsoe off the floor, has a 20.9% usage rate. And Middleton's been a 31% usage player, 1.23 fantasy points per minute is his average. Assist percentage is up to 24.8% with Bledsoe off the floor. Definitely have interest in him at 6,900. Price didn't get really adjusted for Bledsoe being out. I mean, he was very productive last game with 38 DK points in only 23 minutes. That game blew out, so, I mean, that's one of the reasons he only played 23 minutes. If you're going to get like 30 to 32 minutes of Middleton here in a game that could stay close, I do like him quite a bit at small forward, shooting guard, whatever. He is one of the better mid-range options, in my opinion. Tim Hardaway, I think, is firmly in play. Does see a nice bump in usage with Luca out, and 5,800 on DK seems expensive, but he was able to put up 40 DK points in 42 minutes last game with Luca out, with Luca getting hurt, I should say, early on in the game. He took 22 shots in that game, so he's going to see a ton of shot volume, 14 threes. I mean, 5,800 seems expensive, but really it's not for Hardaway. When you take Luca off the floor, he sees a really nice bump in usage. He's really cheap on Yahoo as well. Like him and DiVincenzo are definitely going to be two of my highest owned small forwards, along with Chris Middleton. You got Middleton at 29, Tim Hardaway at 15, DiVincenzo at 11. Like, I expect a lot of my small forward ownership just go to those three guys. But other shooting guards in the 5K range, there's really not much that stands out. Just looking at this slate the night before, and for value, I definitely want to touch on a value play here. So Tyler Hero's down to 4,600 on Draftkings. I do have a ton of interest in him at that salary. He had two really disappointing games after coming off that big game against the Bulls. Only played 23 minutes against the Hawks, had 2 Draftkings points, 0 for 6 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. You obviously don't expect him to be that cold from the field most nights. And then in a tough matchup against the Lakers, 24 minutes, 12 Draftkings points, 3 for 12 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. Another night where he was very cold. And then last game against Dallas, he played much better, had 39 minutes in that game, 31 DK points, 4 for 14 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Just a really solid game overall from Tyler Hero. After those 2 disappointing games, DraftKings dropped his price quite a bit, down to 4,600. I have a lot of interest in him at that salary, given that this should be a very fast-paced game. If we look at pace so far this season, Memphis is a top 10 team in pace. They rank 5th. Miami, they were towards the top of the league. They've started to slow down. They're down to 21st, so this is actually a nice pace-up spot for them. Definitely have interest in Hero at this salary. He's going to play huge minutes off the bench, at least he should, given that Dragic and Winslow are still going to be out for this game. Definitely like him as a shooting guard value play today. I think he stands out as one of the better value options if you are going cheap at the position. And then you do have George Hill that you could play here. We saw Mikael Bridges actually get the start on Saturday. I remember seeing that notification that he was going to start for Devin Booker. 32 minutes, 27 DK points against the Spurs. If Booker's out today, I imagine Bridges draws the start again. 4,100 as a value. I would for sure be in my player pool. But let's go ahead and move on to the small forward position. So at small forward, I do like Giannis quite a bit today at 11-1. Just ranking like the top 3 or 4 studs on the slate. Like you got Harden at 12-9, Giannis at 11-1, Westbrook 9-6, Beal 9-4, Drummond 9-3, and then 9,100 for Butler. Given the 9K and above guys, I think Giannis would probably be up there as the number 1 guy for me. It'd be close between him and Andre Drummond when you factor in salary. Now, if Blake Griffin is out today, Andre Drummond definitely becomes the number 1 stud for me. I do expect Andre Drummond to play today. He's questionable, but he was expected to play on Saturday, and then he was kind of like a late scratch. Given that he was expected to play on Saturday, even though he didn't play, I would expect that he does play today. 9,300 against the Wizards, he should absolutely smash in this spot. No Thomas Bryant, no Mo Wagner, they have no one to defend him. He should dominate on the boards. And Blake Griffin's also questionable as well, which we know how productive of a player Drummond is when Blake's off the floor. So it'd be close between Giannis and Drummond as who's my favorite stud. I'd say I'd lean Giannis right now, but if Blake's out, then it'll definitely be Drummond number 1. Giannis, though, at 11-1, I do like quite a bit. I mean, we saw the numbers, 40% usage rate this season, 1.9 fantasy points per minute is his average when you take Bledsoe off the floor, nearly a 40% assist percentage. We know he's going to rebound a ton. His total rebound percentage is through the roof. Really like Giannis today. I have a feeling I'm going to be playing a lot of Dallas guys, so definitely could be running it back with someone like Giannis from the Milwaukee side. But then other small forwards, Kelly Oubre I have some interest in, especially if Booker's out. I expect he will see a bump in usage. I honestly can't confirm that because I haven't looked, but I can just look right now just so we can check. I'd expect he sees a bump. Probably, obviously, Rubio sees a bump as well. Maybe even a guy like Mikael Bridges or something in the starting lineup helps him as well. So just so far this season with Devin Booker off the floor, the biggest bumps in usage have definitely been like Ricky Rubio up 5%. Ty Jerome, honestly, don't really count that because, I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. And there really haven't been like any clear beneficiaries besides like Ricky Rubio. Kelly Oubre as well, I guess up 3.4%. So those guys do see bumps, like not crazy bumps, or besides like Rubio. I wouldn't say like Oubre is a smash play today. Like honestly, I think it'd probably take Chris Middleton over him, but Oubre would at least be in my tournament player pool for sure if Booker is out. But in the 6K range, not much I really like here. Like Bertans, you can always target in tournaments just because he can get hot from the field and just put up a big game. But it's 6,300 on DK. Like I'm more likely just to look elsewhere. We have guys for cheaper that I like. Tim Hardaway's 5,800. You could even go I think there's some guys that are small forward eligible that I've talked about earlier in the video that you could target, like D Vincenzo all the way down here, 4,600 you could look to. Mikael Bridges, if Booker's out, you could play as a value. Honestly, think small forward's a position I probably will be going cheap with some of the value we have if I can't get up to a guy like Giannis or even to someone like Middleton. So that's just kind of how I'm looking at small forward for today. Now moving over to the power forward position, definitely want to touch on Kristaps Porzingis. So Porzingis 7,800 on Draftkings, one of my favorite plays today. Over on Yahoo, his price tag did not adjust for Luca being out for this game. He's only $30 over there. He's one of the clear plays of the day. I think he's going to be incredibly popular on Yahoo, and you just kind of have to eat that chalk. He probably projects for almost 50 fantasy points, and at $30, I want to get guys in my lineups at $30 that project for 50 fantasy points. So let's just check the numbers. I pulled them up already earlier in the video, but we can do it again. Take Luca off the floor. Porzingis has been the biggest beneficiary this season by quite a mile. So Porzingis has played 128 minutes this season with Luca off the floor, 33.2% usage rate, averaging 1.48 fantasy points per minute. His total rebound percentage is up 4% when you take Luca off the floor. So Porzingis' rebounds do go up quite a bit. We know Luca's been rebounding a ton this season. If you just look in that last game against Miami when Luca got hurt, Porzingis had a monster game. 51 DraftKings points, played 40 minutes, had 22 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. Shot 33% from the field in that game and still had 51 DK points. If Porzingis even shoots 40 to 50% from the field, you could have, this guy has 60-point upside when you take Luca off the floor. Even with the price up to 7,800 on DK, you could argue that still is way too cheap. For a guy that has the potential to go for 55 to 60. Just projecting Porzingis for 34 minutes with his rates with Luka off the floor probably gives him a 50-point projection, which at 7,800, I will definitely take that. I prefer him over all the other guys in that price range. He's definitely one of my favorite plays at power forward today. But just other power forwards we could look to, not really much in the 6K range I like. I think Jaren Jackson's a fine play for 6,300. He's been playing much better lately. Hasn't been fouling as much. His fouls have still been high, but he's still getting solid minutes, 32, 29 minutes, 29 minutes. The guy's going to play 30 to 32 minutes as long as he can't stay out of foul trouble. Had a career game against Milwaukee on Friday night, I believe that was. That was a game that Joe Val really struggled. I know because I played a lot of Joe Val that night, which was frustrating. Wasn't as good the next night against Washington. 29 DK points in 24 minutes. Did have 4 fouls in that game. Against the Heat, though, I wouldn't say this is the best matchup, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is just a guy that has so much upside. So I could see going to him as a tournament play in that mid-range. Should be pretty low owned today. Blake Griffin's a big injury we need to watch. So, this is if Griffin and Drummond both play, really my only interest there is Drummond. If Drummond's out, I love Griffin. If Griffin's out, I love Drummond. That's just really how it goes. So whichever guy's out, I prefer the other guy. If they both play, I really only have interest in Drummond. I guess it is interesting, though, that, Griffin's down to 5,900 in a matchup against the Wizards. That's very appealing, but, dude, Blake Griffin's just been so bad this season. Even in a nice matchup against the Wizards, I don't have a ton of confidence in him. And honestly, probably play guys like Carter Jr. for a little bit cheaper, even go down to some of the value that we could potentially have at this position. So if Blake Griffin is out, that will open up minutes for Christian Wood, 4,500. Even if the guy plays 22 minutes, He's a very productive player. He put up 30 DK points in their last game against Houston, only playing 22 minutes. I know Drummond was out that game, and I believe Blake got hurt as well, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check that real quick. I remember seeing Blake injured when I was just scrolling through Twitter on Saturday night. Let's see how many minutes he played. Yeah, so Blake played 15 minutes in that game, so he did get hurt with Drummond out. We don't know yet if Blake's going to play. We don't know yet if Drummond's going to play. I mean, if they're both out, Christian Wood's like the best value play on the slate. If one of them is out, I think you can still target Wood. If both of them play, really don't have much interest in Christian Wood. But yeah, I think that's it for power forward. Markieff Morris would definitely be interesting if Blake is out. Very good chance he starts. He's only 3,900. He'd be one of the best value plays on the slate for sure. I mean, he's been very productive earlier on in the season when Blake was out. He was very productive. He was like a 5K player most nights. So getting him at 3,900 against the Wizards would make him a really good value. But let's go ahead and run through the center position real quick just before we end the video. So I did touch on Drummond, like him and Giannis as being my two favorite studs. I mean, I love Andre Drummond here against the Wizards. Like, the Wizards are down to Ian Mahinmi and Schofield, like, as their two centers, I believe. I can just check that real quick. So they do have Rui, who they will play at center, but Mahinmi started last game. You did see Admiral Schofield pick up some minutes off the bench. I mean, those two guys have no chance of stopping Andre Drummond on the boards. He should absolutely dominate in this matchup. His price is down to 9,300 on DK. If Blake is out, like, Drummond might be in every single one of my DK lineups. Like, I don't see how he doesn't pay off this price tag, assuming he's playing his full minutes. He put up 58 DK points in 38 minutes earlier this season against the Wizards. I know Blake was out for that game, so I mean, we could easily see him put up a similar game today if Blake is out. Even if Blake plays, like, this is still such a good matchup. The price is coming down on Drummond. I mean, the Wizards are top 2 in pace this season. They rank 2nd in pace. They're dead last in defensive rating. They're a terrible defensive team. Pretty sure they've been a pretty bad rebounding team this season. They rank 25th in offensive rebound percentage. They rank 27th in defensive rebound percentage. Like, Drummond should just absolutely dominate on the boards. Easy 2020 spot for him. Love him at 9,300. Definitely one of my favorite studs, along with Giannis today. And I think on Yahoo, I'll have interest in him as well at 47. If I'm going to pay $47 for him, though, like, I probably want Blake Griffin to be out in order for me to pay that salary. Like, Drummond needs to get you over 50 fantasy points to even be, like, remotely decent at that salary, which obviously he can. But I think you're more likely to get a 60 to 65 point game from him if Blake is out, which that's when I want to target him over there. But now other centers, we'll just run through the position real quick. Whiteside, 8,100. I mean, now that he's playing 30 to 32 minutes a night, sometimes even more, like, he's a really good play at 8,100 if he's getting 32 to 34 minutes against the Suns. Definitely have interest in Whiteside if I'm not paying up for Drummond. He's probably my next favorite spend-up option. In the mid-range, Steven Adams is in a great matchup against the Bulls. His price is up to 6,700 on DK, so he's not like a smash play by any means. I mean, he's up to $26 on Yahoo as well, so I wouldn't consider him a core play today, but I would definitely have him in my tournament player pool, just given how good that matchup is. Joe Val is so cheap, but man, it's hard to trust him right now. I've got burned on Joe Val literally like the last 3 slates in a row. I've played him every slate, the last 3 slates in a row. It's come back to bite me. I'm sure I'll fade him today and he'll go for like 50 DK points because that's just how it is, but I'll probably be off of Joe Val even at 6,200. Tough matchup as well. Just, I don't see this being a spot where he puts up a ceiling game, and if he does, I'll just be really annoyed. But in the 5K range, there's really not much stands out here, just a lot of injuries at this price range. Aaron Baines, I would have some interest in as a value if we can like confirm that he's not going to be on a minutes limit. He did start, I believe, on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. He started that game. Honestly, could probably check that real quick. Let me check that. Let me see if Baines started against the Spurs. I don't think he did, but we can see. Like I said, I didn't play NBA DFS on Saturday, so I really didn't keep up with much. So they still went with Kaminsky at center, but Baines did come off the bench and replace Kaminsky. So, I mean, if we get Baines in the starting lineup for 4,800 with no minutes limit, like, he'd be a top value play, definitely against Portland. And honestly, facing Hassan Whiteside, like, I don't see how Frank Kaminsky has much success defending Whiteside. Like, you're going to need Baines out there. So definitely have interest in Aaron Baines, especially if he moves back into the starting lineup for 4,800. Then you obviously got Wood you could play here if one of Drummond or Blake is out. Like, I'd want Drummond to be out preferably because that's probably more likely to benefit Wood. But still, the guy's so productive. It's such a good matchup. Even if one of the two is out and you can give him 5 or 6 more minutes, he becomes a solid value at 4,500. Ian Mahinmi, I was hating on his defense, but I do have some interest in him at 4,100, especially if Drummond plays. Like, you're going to need a guy like Mahinmi out there to guard Drummond just because Mahinmi has size. He started last game, I know, on Saturday. He played 17 minutes, had 10 DraftKings points. I mean, with Wagner and Bryant both out, like, you're going to need Mahinmi to play in this game. Like, you can't go small. You can't play, like, I'm not sure how big Schofield is. Like, I could probably look that up. I don't think he's that big of a guy, though. Like, I think he's actually pretty undersized compared to Drummond. He did get 21 minutes off the bench, though, in that game against Memphis. I think he pretty much played, like, a lot of the minutes that Mahinmi didn't get. I would assume Mahinmi gets those minutes most nights, and he's 4,100 on DK, so you could definitely look to him as a value at the center position today. And then, obviously, Markieff, if Blake or Drummond out today, 3,900, he'd be a really good value. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for center. I think we pretty much covered everything. Talked about a little bit longer than I would expected for a 7-game slate, but there was a lot to cover, a lot of injury news today. Definitely going to be one of those days where you need to be at your computer, at locker, at your phone, whatever, have access to the news, because I expect a lot to be changing. Hopefully after a shoot around, we'll get some updates on these guys. We'll know some updates on like Drummond, Blake, some of the other injuries we're waiting on, like Devin Booker. We'll get some clarity there. Hopefully we get a Mavericks starting lineup as well. We can see who starts for Luca. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you are new. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can click that notification bell as well, so that way you get notified every time I upload. You can follow me on Twitter at DFS by Noah. And like I said at the beginning of the video, you can check out all the content I have available on Patreon. If you want to get access to all of my updated in-depth content for this slate, you can check that out on Patreon. My article, my lineup building video, my updated core plays will all be available over there. And if you do sign up and join the Patreon by Christmas Day, you will get invited to our $100 free roll contest. You'll have a chance to win $100 coming out of my pocket, giving back to you guys. I want to give back to those that do support my channel and support the content I provide on Patreon. And if you do stay subscribed to the Patreon, you will get access to the next $100 free roll, which will most likely be launching, or I'll most likely start it and give you an invite whenever we hit our next goal, which will probably be 75 Patreons. Whenever we hit 75 Patreons, I will run another $100 free roll for all my subscribers over there. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for everything. I think we covered everything. Good luck tonight. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.